We're less than 40 hours away from the NFL draft, and what I kind of conducted was kind of a mock draft, but it's not really a mock draft. It's about scenarios. All the potential different scenarios that we could see on draft night. And some have had a little bit of drastic changes after things we've gotten aware of within the last 48 to 72 hours. But the show must go on, so I've conducted kind of a scenario. I've spent the last couple of days working on this. So let's start with something a little bit easy. Let's start with Cleveland first overall pick. I say there's a 95% chance to take Myles Garrett, but there's still that 5% that want Mitch Trubisky to be drafted by these Browns. But I feel like it's a little too early to pull the trigger on a quarterback, considering the history of the failure at the quarterback position the Browns have had over the past 2 decades. But Cleveland's is a little bit dysfunctional, and they don't really know what they're really going to do. But if they do what we say 98% of us say they're going to do and draft Myles Garrett, so let's put Myles Garrett the first overall pick like we have throughout the entire mock draft season. And I'm going to go to their 12th pick. I've done the same with Tennessee and New Orleans when we get to their turn. I do their first pick, then I do the second pick later on, right after it. So let's get to Cleveland's second pick in this first round, which is the 12th overall pick. They can do so many different things with it. They still have a chance to get the quarterback that they are looking for. However, I see this being a corner to pair up with Joe Hayden, preferably Marlon Humphrey, the cornerback out of Alabama. I think it would do wonders for Cleveland if they had someone lined up alongside of Joe Hayden. However, there were so many things that they could have done. They could maybe try investing in one of the wide receivers, or they could draft O.J. Howard, who has the productivity as a wide receiver. But I did say in the final mock draft that people just seem to only remember the 6 catches for 209 yards and 2 touchdowns against Clemson in the national championship game 2 seasons ago. That seems to be the only thing they remember. But let's move on to San Francisco, the second overall pick. I see there being an 80% chance to take a defensive end. Most likely, will probably, if they do defensive end act, if they really do that, I say Solomon Thomas out of Stanford, kind of built right in San Francisco's backyard at Stanford. I say there's a 15% chance they go Marshawn Lattimore, cornerback out of Ohio State. And 5% would be the other with Mitch Trubisky, if the Browns do what they do, or what they're supposed to do, according to 98% of us, and go with Myles Garrett. So let's jump right to Chicago. I say there's a 50% chance Chicago goes with, I think this is 50-50. I think they either go with Marshawn Lattimore or San Francisco doesn't pick him, or they go with Malik Hooker or Jamal Adams. One of those three is going to be a bear, in my opinion. The question is, which one's it going to be? And then we jump to Jacksonville. A little bit different with this pick. I say there's a 75% chance they'll go with Jonathan Allen, the defensive end of Alabama. Or a 25% chance to go with Leonard Fournette. But I would almost lean towards it being more of a short thing. They go with Jonathan Allen over Leonard Fournette. It's still a possibility they go with Leonard Fournette, but I feel like maybe they'll consider it. It's a little bit too early to make that move. Now, Tennessee with the 5th overall pick. I say there's a 100% chance to go with Marshawn Lattimore if he's still available, but a 100% wide receiver or O.J. Howard if Lattimore is not available. We did speak to Dinerbird55, who represented the Tennessee Titans in the fan mock draft, which I'm going to put the link in the description box of all the mock drafts that I have conducted this NFL mock draft season to kind of see how it's evolved from mock draft after mock draft. And in the fan mock draft, he was trying to trade the 5th overall pick in the fan mock draft. But he couldn't find a trading partner with. But he did go with Reuben Foster of Alabama. But things have probably changed since that fan mock draft. I would probably lean towards Tennessee needing more secondary help. But it seems like no matter what they do, whether it's offense or defense, they'll do the opposite with the 18th pick, which we're going to get to, which is 100% wide receiver or O.J. Howard if they get Marshall Lattimore with the 5th overall pick. However, if they did not get Marshall Lattimore with the 5th overall pick, then I see a 50-50 between drafting a corner, another one of the corners, or trading this pick away. I feel like if a team is going to trade, if they would trade backwards, it would be Tennessee. Maybe they're trying to get some leverage. Maybe they want to get a second-round pick because they don't have a second-round pick this year. Moving on to the New York Jets. This is probably the first unpredictable pick in this year's draft. The Jets can take a wideout to replace Brandon Marshall, a quarterback that can hopefully be a day one starter, as it looks like they won't be giving Christian Hackenberg a chance anytime soon. Either a QB or wide receiver do wonders for the Jets. LA Chargers, I see it being a 100% chance Jamal Adams or Malik Hooker if either is still available. Which, according to this potential scenario, at least one of them is still available. It's even a possibility that both of them could still be available. So I feel like one of those two is going to be the Chargers pick. Carolina, this is kind of the first bold scenario I've had. But I think they go 100% running back with this. If all three are available, I would lean towards Fournette. However, the Panthers have expressed their interest in McCaffrey and have a good shot at drafting if Fournette gets taken off the board by Jacksonville before the Panthers get put on the clock. I believe I had them going with Derek Barnett in the final mock draft, which I'm going to pull out right now. Actually, I had him going with Leonard Fournette. But in this scenario, Leonard Fournette has a 25% chance of being off the board at this point. Anyway, moving on to Cincinnati, I think they go 100% defense at this pick. I would say they would draft an offensive lineman, but to take an offensive lineman this early, in my opinion, is not really worth it. I say they go defense, very likely Reuben Foster, which I had in the last mock draft. All right, Buffalo. I think there's an 85% chance they go wide receiver, 15% quarterback. I think it's still possible the Bills take a quarterback. I had them taking Mitch Trubisky in the final mock draft. But after giving it a second thought, I think they more than likely go wide receiver, considering Tyrod Taylor's re-signed in the offseason. Right now we've got the New Orleans picks. Let's start with the 11th overall pick. They now have 2 picks in this first round by trading Brandon Cooks to the Patriots. Since they have 2 picks, I see no matter what with what they do, with kind of like with Tennessee, if they go defense, they'll go offensive with their second pick. If they go offense, they'll go defense with the second pick. It's kind of what they're going to do with this one, they're going to do the other thing for the other. So I see the Saints. I could see the Saints maybe they could consider one of the wide receivers, but I feel like there could be some better ones deeper in the first round, possibly more into the second. But I didn't have him taking Marshall Lattimore, corner out of Ohio State, in the final mock draft. Maybe they'll take someone. Maybe they'll take one of the safeties if they're still available. Maybe Malik Hooker or Jamal Adams, depending on if one of them is still available. Or they'll do Marlon Humphrey before the Browns could get to him with the 12th overall pick. Well, the 32nd pick, I see New Orleans actually going wide receiver. Zay Jones out of East Carolina. I think you just got to get back what you lost in a way. If you lose a wide receiver, you got to at least use this pick to at least get a wide receiver, give Drew Brees a target. Moving on to Arizona, the Cardinals have somewhat unique options at number 13. They could A, draft one of the quarterbacks to learn under an aging Carson Palmer. B, draft one of the wide receivers to pair up with Larry Fitzgerald this season. Or C, draft O.J. Howard if he's still available, who many consider to have the productivity of a wideout being a tight end, or D, draft defensive presence for their front seven. What this will ultimately come down to, I think, is what they think they need to focus on first. I've said before that if you're looking for a franchise changer at the quarterback position, it's not in this year's draft class. Of course, just my opinion. However, these other options I'd lean towards option B or D. We're at Philadelphia. This one's like the Cardinals. They have plenty of options they can go with. With getting this 14th pick over the Colts at the Combine, winning that coin toss, it could really help them. Honestly, I think they can do one of four different things. They'll go defensive end, either Derek Barnett or Hassan Reddick. A running back, if one of the running backs is still available, which according to the scenario, at least one of them still is. I had them going with Dalvin Cook in that final mock draft. They could go corner because the Eagles could really use some depth at corner considering of what the different receivers are they have to deal with, being in the NFC East. Or they can go with Corey Davis if he's still available. Because they may have signed Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith in the free agency season. But it would give Carson Wentz just another weapon to throw to, just another weapon to utilize. The Indianapolis Colts, they have so many needs to address. At this rate, they're wasting Andrew Luck's career without some support around him. The three most things they need are offensive lineman, defensive end, and running back. I feel like if I were them, I would go with an offensive lineman to protect Andrew Luck. I know I had Derek Barnett being that pick in the final mock draft, but things have kind of changed the last couple of days. With NFL draft talk, things change day by day. And different things can happen all throughout from between now and the time the Colts go on the clock. But there's a couple offensive linemen that could be day one starters. Cam Robinson, Ryan Ramczyk, and Garrett Bowles. All right, let's move on to Baltimore. I think there's a 70% chance they go cornerback, 20% linebacker, but there's 5% John Ross if he's still available, or 5% offensive tackle. I would consider Baltimore going with... I would understand if Baltimore went with a cornerback because the AFC North doesn't have the best secondary. I mean, I kind of just... I don't know how to describe what I said, but I did describe it as the AFC North kind of doesn't have the best secondary, and they always have to deal with all these receivers, like dealing with Antonio Brown and A.J. Green. But I feel like this 5% of John Ross comes in to pair up with Brashard Perriman, who they need to have step up this next season. Or they could maybe go the Cowboys route and go with an offensive tackle, just like they did last year with Ronnie Stanley. They could try to build up a wall with the offensive line. All right, Washington. Now this is kind of a bold pick, not really straightforward. But I think there's a 60% chance the Redskins take Jabril Peppers and 40% somewhere else. And the reason is I feel like Jabril Peppers is the most versatile athlete in this draft class. And it was reported that he failed a drug test at the Combine. But I feel like he's just too good of an athlete to pass up. He did play under Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, who in his past developed star NFL players. This can be considered a steal because of how versatile an athlete he is. All right, Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers could easily be the next team on the rise. But they have the talent to be a playoff team next year. But of course, some help wouldn't hurt a bit. I think this pick could easily be 100% Hassan Reddick or Derek Barnett if either of them are still available, and what I think could be a very deep defensive first round. The only other thing I could imagine could be Dalvin Cook, the running back out of Florida State, if he's still on the board. Like the Denver Broncos now, they didn't have they didn't have it their way last season, most due to the retirement of Peyton Manning and the departure of Brock Osweiler in free agency last year. And of course, they had some talented pieces on that defense, like Malik Jackson and Danny Trevathan, leaving free agency. But I feel like that the Broncos will go offensive lineman in the first round. I say it's about a 90% chance. Although I've had some kind of angry Broncos fans in the comments saying they're going to take Christian McCaffrey still available. But in this scenario, he's off the board. So offensive lineman for the Broncos. Now we're getting to the teams that made the playoffs last year. Detroit, I think they go 60% defensive end. There's a 60% chance they'll go defensive end, 30% chance linebacker, 10% anybody else. The Lions proved a lot of people wrong last year, including myself, and made the playoffs last year. And competed pretty decent against Seattle until the fourth quarter. They have quite a few things that they need to fit in for their future, but most likely I see them going defensive end. But if they feel like there isn't one available, like the one that they're looking at, this could be a Taco Charlton pick. This could be an Hassan Reddick pick. This could be Derek Barnett if he falls. This could be a Malik McDowell. Now let's go to Miami. I think there's a 100% chance going to take a player on defense. They surprised a lot of critics last year by the earning spot in the playoffs. Fortunate time the playoffs didn't last long as they completely got outmatched by the Steelers in the wild card round. Most things the Dolphins lack are players with a defensive presence. So I think it's a guarantee they're going to go defense in this first round. I can't think of any possible scenario where they don't take a defensive player. So I think their offense is there. I mean, you have Ryan Tannehill going to come back, and then you have Devontae Parker and Kenny Stills. You got Jay Ajayi at running back. So I think your parts on offense are there. I think they got to build up the bully in Miami. The New York Giants. I say there's a 90% chance they're going to go with an offensive lineman and 10% tight end / running back if one of those star 3 running backs are still happen to be available in the Giants pick. And the offensive line may not be the best pick for the Giants. Actually, let me rephrase that. It may not be the satisfying pick for the fans. The fans may not be happy with it, but it's what's going to help the Giants this next season. Whether they go offensive lineman, it'll protect Eli Manning by giving him more protection in the pocket. But if they go tight end, possibly David Njoku out of Miami, Florida, give him an additional receiving target. Where we've got Oakland, I think the odds of the Raiders' first round pick, in my opinion, is as follows: 50% cornerback, 50% linebacker. However, there's one thing I bet nobody is noticing. Is the Raiders don't have a starting running back anymore because they lost Latavius Murray in free agency to the Vikings. And the Raiders were very interested in Adrian Peterson, but he is now signed with the Saints as of today. And I know they've had interest in getting Marshawn Lynch, but we don't know if he's officially coming out of retirement yet. So if Dalvin Cook is still on the board at pick 24, don't be surprised if they decide to snag him up while they can. All right, 25, Houston. I think this is going to be an easy pick. I think it's 100% Pat Mahomes. He's still on the board. But if he's not on the board, I think it's 90% offensive lineman, 8% Deshaun Kaiser. Mahomes is off the board. And 2% if Deshaun Watson's still on the board, but if the Browns or the Cardinals took Pat Mahomes with their respective first-round picks. Like I said, there's no doubt that Pat Mahomes is still available in the Texans pick at 25. That's what the Texans pick is going to be. Because it seems like a perfect fit for Pat Mahomes, as I've said in the last 2 mock drafts. But if Pat Mahomes gets taken, the Texans do two things. Either take an offensive lineman and settle for a QB in the later round, or they're going to stick it out with Tom Savage this year, or try to go with Deshaun Watson if he's still on the board, or definitely go with Deshaun Kaiser. Because I feel like Deshaun Kaiser will definitely be available at pick 25 if Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson are taken. At this point, I think Mitch Trubisky definitely is going to get taken. Seattle. I say there's a 100% chance they're going to go with an offensive lineman. I don't see them going with anything else. Maybe a small possibility of Jabril Peppers, but I think that's less than 1%. Seattle struggled on offensive line the last 2 seasons, and we've seen that. With this pick, the Seahawks can use this to build a stronger line to protect Russell Wilson. Kansas City. The Chiefs need help in a few areas. To start, linebacker is the most important one. If the Chiefs don't want to focus on linebackers right away, they can take a corner to line up alongside Marcus Peters. However, I think there's a 5% chance they try to go with a quarterback. I think that's in play because they might want to be willing to find a successor for Alex Smith as he turns 33 in a few weeks. For the Cowboys, I say there's a 90% chance to go with a corner, 10% linebacker. The Cowboys, they shocked everyone with how well they were under rookie studs Zeke Elliott and Dak Prescott, but they still have problems on defense, especially in the secondary. With this first round pick, I see Dallas going with the corner in an attempt to plug up a hole in the secondary for 2017. A lot like this next team right here, the Green Bay Packers. Just like Dallas, the Packers also had massive holes in the secondary last season. In fact, the Packers were 31st in the NFL in pass defense. That should be a reason for Green Bay to invest in a cornerback in this year's first round. There's going to be a couple of great corners still available at this point. Kevin King out of Washington. Possibly Garyon Conley out of Ohio State. Considering what broke in the news this morning or earlier today. Adoree Jackson might still be available. There's all these great corners that could be day one starters. That'll be available for Green Bay at 29. Pittsburgh. I think there's a 95% chance they go linebacker, 5% anybody else. The Steelers' defense needs more youth, in particular the linebacker position. I can see this pick possibly being T.J. Watt or Charles Harris if one of those two is still available at pick 30. But if Hassan Reddick happens to still be at this point, I see the Steelers snagging him up. All right, we're going to end it with Atlanta. I see there's a 50% chance they're going to go defensive end, 50% offensive line. The Falcons seem to still be having a hard time trying to comprehend what happened in Super Bowl 51. But they could easily be in the Super Bowl next year if they draft smart again this year. General Manager Thomas Dimitroff has hinted the possibility of trying to trade up in the first round. But if they aren't able to trade up, I see them taking... I could see them trying to take offensive line help. It may not be the best pick, but it could be what could put the Falcons back in the Super Bowl. But there is a possibility they could also go with an edge rusher to pair up with Vic Beasley. I've seen a couple of mock drafts from experts it's Jordan Willis, defensive end out of Kansas State. I would be happy with that pick. I think it'd pair it very nicely with Vic Beasley. But I'd settle for offensive line. I'd settle for Forrest Lamp out of Western Kentucky. I'd settle for that as well. In fact, maybe if Ramschuk or Cam Robinson or Garrett Bowles, if any of those are still available, I think Atlanta should just snag one of those up. But anyway, that's your list of scenarios, potential scenarios. Anyway, like and subscribe to the channel. Again, I'm going to put the link in the description box of all of the mock drafts I've done. Kind of just see how it's kind of evolved. I mean, if you want to backtrack and look at them, to see where we've come from ever since the first mock draft to less than 2 days until draft night, I think that'd be great. Anyway, I will see you in my next video. And have a good day or evening, depending on when you're watching. I will see you next time.